All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the C Show. I got your boy Chris here. Tonight, I have a very special guest on the show, Kennedy and Tippit researcher, Matt Douthit. Matt, how are you tonight?
I'm all right. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for coming on the show, man. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
We talked earlier about things. How long have you been involved or interested in the murder of Officer J.D. Tippit?
Not a whole lot. For many years, I naturally assumed that Oswald did not shoot JFK, but that maybe in self-defense he shot Tippit. But then I read Mark Lane's book, and I was just absolutely stunned that I did not even know the basic evidence of the Tippit case. so that's what changed my mind.
When you say in self-defense, you mean that Tippit stopped him and then he defended himself against a false arrest? Is that what you're meaning, or how exactly do you mean?
I didn't even go. I wasn't even thinking that far.
Okay.
I hadn't studied Tippit at all until I read. I didn't even know the basic facts of the case until I read Mark Lane's 2 chapters on it.
Rest of judgment. I'd never really given any thought. Sorry, I mean to cut you off because I want you to talk. I'd never really given any thought to the Tippit case until I actually read the part in Rush to Judgment. So tell me what happened. Oswald's walking down the street. Tippit sees him and stops him, and take us from there.
No, that's the official story.
Okay.
And that's the official story of what's claimed.
All right. So Oswald was. So what was he doing when this happened? Or I mean, Tippit didn't stop him, or what?
J.D. Tippit stopped a man who was walking through the neighborhood.
Okay.
He stopped him. He talked with this man through the vent window of his car.
Right. Okay.
Tippit got out of his car, and as he was walking around the front of his car, the man shot him several times across the hood of the car and killed him. And then ran off. And that is just about the only thing that everyone agrees happened.
Now, but is it not true, Matt, that the only person who actually witnessed it was Helen Markham?
Mm-hmm.
She did pick him out of a lineup, correct?
We're told that she picked him out of a lineup. In her testimony, they said, "Did you pick anyone?" They asked her if she identified anyone, and she said no.
Well, I think the actual question was, did you see anybody that you knew from that day or you recognized from that day?
She said no. And then she said no. And then she said yes. And then she ended it with, "I looked at this man, I wasn't sure, but I had cold chills just run all over me." So
now, I know Captain Ball was there a number 2 man?
Say it again.
Now, are we talking about back when you said the cold chills? I know what you're talking about. Then, are we talking about back when I said that about recognizing? Are we still in the lineup? Or are we back at our Warren Commission testimony?
No, there's nothing from that. There's no document from that day where she says that she picked anyone out.
Okay. So on the day of the lineup, there's no document that says she picked out Lee Harvey Oswald.
Correct. There's no document that's signed by her or anything. Yeah, nothing. So yeah.
Huh.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So what we have to do is we have to rely on her testimony. And they said, "Did you identify anybody in the lineup? No, sir. And if you line it all up in her testimony, she says, no, 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 no. Yes, yes. And then she ended it with, I wasn't sure.
Well, I mean, Tom, if you're talking wrong, I mean, wasn't the question supposedly, did you recognize anybody from that day or something to that effect? And that's when Councilman Ball said, did you see a number 2? And that's when she said yes.
Yeah, that's what I said. If you line it all up, how about we read it right now? You want to read that?
Yeah, go ahead. By all means, please go ahead.
I might have to pause it for a second.
Go ahead, buddy.
Because I have to bring it up, all right?
Okay.
Okay, so this is from the testimony. Did you recognize anyone in the lineup? No, sir. You did not? You did not see anybody? I have asked you that question before. Did you recognize anyone from their face? From their face, no. Did you identify anybody in these 4 people? I didn't know nobody. I know you didn't know anybody, but did anybody in that lineup look like anybody you had seen before? No. I had never seen none of them. None of these men. Not one of the 4? Not one of them. Not one of all 4? No, sir.
Okay.
Yep. And then the magic question, was there a number 2 man in there? And then she's like, oh, number 2's the one I picked. Yeah. Number 2's the one I saw shoot the officer. And then she ended this with, I looked at this man, I wasn't sure, but I had cold chills just run all over me. So she ended this with saying she wasn't sure. So that's and the Warren Commission interprets this as a positive identification. That's not a positive identification.
Okay, I'll go along with that. It was a very leading question put in her mouth. But do you not think that was kind of maybe the way she was? They asked the question, did you recognize anybody that day? No. I mean, could she not be thinking in her mind, I never recognized nobody before that day?
No. They asked her over and over. Did she identify? No. She stated several times that she didn't identify anybody in the lineup. Mm-hmm. And then she said, she ended it with, I wasn't sure.
I mean, even Council Ball said she was a fruitcake. I mean, you don't think she could have been misunderstanding his question?
He said that she was a quote, utter screwball, yeah.
But you don't think she could have been misunderstanding his question?
No, as I just read you, he asked her over and over and over. And yeah.
All right, so let's go back down there to that day. So the shots rang out.
So she did not identify him. And I know now that what people are saying now is that, oh, well, she might have been confused in her testimony, but she still identified him on November 22nd. But as I just told you, there's no document from that day where she says she picked anybody. There's no document from that day. So that argument is bunk.
Of the other people, look, I mean, do you want to go on the lights or you want to go to what else happened that day?
It's your show, man.
Okay.
Sure. You can do whatever you want.
Okay. According to the story, Oswald starts to fool with his revolver. He looked at Helen Markham.
Whoa. You mean the man? You see what you did there? You said Oswald.
Okay.
The man.
Okay. We'll go with the alleged. How about that? The alleged killer starts
the killer. The killer.
Starts to fumble with his revolver. Unloading shells. I think he drops 2 there at the scene. You can correct me if I'm wrong. he takes off towards William Whaley's cab.
No, not William Whaley's. William Scoggins.
Sorry, William Scoggins. I always get them mixed up. William Scoggins' cab. Scoggins hears him say something. Poor dumb cop. Poor damn cop. So he takes off. There's shells that are found in some bushes, I believe, by the Davis sisters' house.
No, first they were found in a bush by witness Domingo, by witness Donnie Benavides.
Yeah,
and he turned them over to the police, and then later that day there were 2 more shells found on the side of the Davis sisters' house.
He put them in a cigarette pack.
Yes,
that's right. I remember that now. Okay, they came on the radio. Now, what time do you believe that the shooting took place?
What time?
Yeah,
I would say about 1:09.
All right. Well, and I've heard the transcripts that went over Dallas radio. That happened at 1:17. So, do you think they left Tippit laying in the street for 8 minutes?
Wait, you mean the time that the dispatcher was made aware was at 1:16? I think that's what you're saying. I think that's what we're talking about, right?
The tapes, Jerry Daly played these for me, and they went over at 1:16, 1:17.
Yeah, let's say 1:16 because that's Jim Bowles, who was, the Dallas tapes were his baby. So he was the sheriff. He was the sheriff that day. So he says 1:16. So let's go by 1:16.
That's fine with me. Do you think they left Tippit laying in the street for 8 minutes without rendering a need?
I would say about 6 or 7 minutes. Yeah.
So 6 or 7 minutes. What were these people doing?
No, people were huddled around the body. People, there was a blanket that was thrown over him. People were calling the police, things like that.
But what time did they actually? Was it T.J. Bowley who came over? The
T.F. Bowley.
Sorry. And he came over at that time and said, "There's a policeman been shot."
Yeah. Yes, correct.
So,
he made that call at 1:16. Yep.
So they left him laying there for 8 minutes without offering medical aid, getting the ambulance out there, trying to.
About 6 or 7 minutes. Yeah, he laid in the street. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's just what happened. I can give you all the evidence. Donnie Benavides, he said he stayed crouched down in his truck for, quote, a few minutes until he went to the body.
What's a few minutes?
A few minutes, yeah.
So, I mean,
so there you go.
But see, what's a few minutes? I mean, people can think 30 seconds is a few minutes. People can think it's a few minutes. I mean, these are pre-digital watches. I mean,
2 minutes, something like that. About 2 minutes, maybe, for him. But there's a lot more evidence other than him that the body laid in the street for several minutes. Again, there's nothing wrong with him laying in the street for 6 minutes. That's just what happened. I don't see why that seems to be a controversy.
Well, no, it's not. All right, I'm not trying to say it's controversy. My thing is being a former military and people go down. You don't leave somebody shot in the street for 6 minutes. You immediately start rendering aid.
No one gave him no one gave him any aid or CPR at the scene. All they did was throw a blanket over him.
That's what I'm saying.
That's all they did until the ambulance came.
What I'm saying is, in that situation, 6 people are, from my experience, are going to start rendering some type of aid.
But they didn't.
Okay.
They did.
Maybe it was shock. I have a hard time believing they left him there 6 minutes, but that's
Why?
here, huh?
Why?
Why do I have a problem believing it?
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I was in the military. I mean, when your comrades go down, you're immediately over
Well,
there.
we're not in the military. This is a residential street in 1963.
I mean, but I've started rendering aid to people in a restaurant before that I
Yeah.
thought.
Well, yeah. Well, of course, that's what happens, but that's not what happened here. Every situation's different. No one bothered to
I mean,
help him. But T.F. Bowley, he did inspect his body, but he said he was dead once he looked at him. So, but no one gave him CPR. Was CPR even around back then, or I don't know.
And if when he looked at it and seen I think the final one was a headshot. Okay, yeah, I guess
So what's your point?
Well, the point is that I'm making is you said they're standing around for 6 minutes. It looks like they would have converged on him to find out, hey, is this guy still responsive? Is this guy still breathing? Checking his body.
You can't argue about what you would have done. All we know is what happened, and no one tried to, CPR or anything like that. So this isn't even an issue because no one tried to give him CPR. So I've never actually even heard someone even ask that before. So all they did was throw a blanket over him.
What I said was render aid.
Yeah.
We didn't know if
didn't happen. It didn't happen.
Well, no, I mean,
it's as simple as that.
Well, obviously, there was no reason to. I mean, the headshot. I mean, you're honest about that.
So what's your question?
My question was, and we're just going around in circles now. We can go on to. What's one of the things? Okay, so you got past who must have just said Scoggins or
I think what you're trying to say is what's the evidence for him lying in the street for 6 minutes? Is that what your question is?
That's a long time for somebody.
Sure. Here's the evidence. Here's the evidence of him lying in the street for 5-6 minutes. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just what happened. But sure, I can give you. I think that's what you were asking me. So I'll give you the evidence.
That's not what I was asking.
Donnie, as I said, Donnie Benavides. Donnie Benavides said he stayed crouched down for, quote, a few minutes in his truck because he was afraid the man was going to come back and start to do more shooting. That's in his Warren Commission testimony. Then we have the testimony of Mrs. Barbara Davis. She testified she called the police, went to Tippit's body, and stayed with it for, quote, 5 minutes. That's volume 3, page 345. And then we have her sister, and then we have her sister-in-law, Virginia Davis. She told the FBI that she went to Tippit's body after Barbara called the police and, quote, a few minutes later after that. Then we have Harold Russell. He told the FBI that after watching the killer run away, he walked 2 blocks to the crime scene, had a couple conversations with bystanders, and then, quote, 5 minutes later, the police arrived. That's volume 21, page 383. Then we have, Jim Burt. Hold on, almost down here. And then we have Jim Burt. He said that he and Bill Smith immediately ran to Tippit's body and, quote, stood there a few minutes. Then they went down Patton Avenue to look for the killer, searched the alley, and when they came back, the ambulance hadn't arrived yet. And that's it. And finally, we have Sam Ginyard. He testified that he and Ted Calloway, after watching the killer flee, they went to the crime scene and, quote, stood there a while until the ambulance arrived. That's volume 7, page 398. So yes, about 5-6 minutes elapsed until the police were notified. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's just what happened. So it shouldn't even be an issue.
Something I'll question with that is, this is pre-digital watches. Nobody's standing around looking at them. I doubt they're paying attention to them. Now, are you saying that, and I can believe this too, that some of the people, like you said, Domingo, stayed in his truck, that some people stayed where they were at because they were afraid that the killer would come back?
One person.
Huh?
One person said that, yeah.
Okay.
Crouched down.
And it was Calloway or Scoggins that got his weapon. I was getting them mixed up, but got his weapon and went searching for him.
That was Calloway. And you said
Hey,
something about, this isn't, they didn't have the digital watches back then. This isn't about what time it was. This is the what they said they did, these witnesses. So it's not a matter of time. It's a matter of what they said they did.
That's, to me, that's an argument that's, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. That's not really relevant to me on
Yes, it is.
That, well, it isn't to me on
okay.
Here. But so the funeral, but the funeral, didn't the ambulance pick him up at 1:15?
No, the ambulance picked him up around 1:18 or 1:19.
Because it was just around the corner, I believe.
Yes.
From where he was at. Okay. All right. So now I'm trying to remember some of who came there. So Jimmy Burt seen the killer.
Yes.
That seen him take off running. Jacket gets shed and thrown up under the God, what did he throw his jacket under?
So the official story is that the killer shed his jacket and threw it up underneath a car in a parking lot that was
of a petrol station.
of a gas station.
Yeah. Some of these witnesses that they all slipped my mind. But from time Oswald take off running, they were passing one witness to the next. Correct?
Now you just said Oswald. You should have, that's
Forgive me.
The killer.
Let's just say, let's call it a slip because I'm used to saying it. Feel free to correct me. The killer.
That's how it should be. Yeah, the killer.
Joel was passed from one witness to the next as he was fleeing.
Mm-hmm.
As if they seen him. Okay. The next time when he came out on the street, he straightened up, acted cool, and was walking down the sidewalk, and was seen in Johnny Brewer's foyer. Correct?
Foyer, yes.
Cop cars come screeching by, and he looks in the window.
We're talking about Oswald now. Yes.
Okay. Let's back up just a second. So, the person who I was talking about earlier, the killer, did they pass off from one person to the next? What happened to him?
Don't know.
So, these people have all seen him. He just disappears.
Not disappears. We don't know what happened to him. He just,
So, Oswald is seen in Johnny Brewer's foyer.
Correct. Oswald was seen in Johnny Brewer's foyer, yes.
Where did Oswald come from?
He was last seen at the corner outside of at the street corner, outside of his rooming house across the street, at the street corner where there happens to be a bus stop. And then he was next seen, as you just said, passing by Johnny Brewer's shoe store on Jefferson Street.
So, Oswald starts walking down the street. Johnny says, "Hey, mind the store." Follow Oswald up there. Julia Postle's outside smoking a cigarette.
No, she's not smoking a cigarette now.
You sure she didn't come out? She was not smoking a cigarette at that time.
No, no. Okay. What happened was she was in her little ticket booth, and there were cop cars, screeching down the street, and she wanted to see what the heck was going on. So she left. So she left her booth and she went out front, and that's when Oswald, she ducked past her, seen by Johnny Brewer.
Why didn't Oswald buy a ticket?
That's actually a good question. A researcher named Jones Harris asked Julia Postal. She asked her, "Did you sell Oswald a ticket?" And she just burst into tears. She covered her face. She just burst into tears. So it's possible that she sold him a ticket, or but let's just say that let's just assume that the official story is correct. That's just a little side story, but let's just assume that the official story is correct, and he goes into the Texas theater.
Okay. All right. So goes in the Texas theater. Didn't buy a ticket. Sorry, I lost the question I had there. So
Right.
he had, I think, $13 in his pocket and didn't buy a ticket.
Something like that.
You have a theory on why he didn't buy the ticket?
No,
So what time would this be that he's supposed to bought this ticket?
I didn't say he did buy a ticket. I'm saying when he entered the theater.
I rephrased that wrong. What time?
Okay.
What time do you think this was that he supposedly entered the theater?
That's another interesting question. Johnny Brewer said that it was at 1:15, which that's the time that and officially, according to the Warren report, Officer Tippit was shot at 1:16. So if Johnny Brewer saw Oswald go in at 1:50, I mean, that game over. If that's true.
The Warren Commission said 116.
Yes, sir. It's page 158 of their report.
Because I mean, and that's kind of cutting it close, then, isn't it? If he shot at 116 and then they're over police radio at 116, there's not much of a time there. But anyway, so that's it. So we'll say 1:15 he enters the theater. Now, there's been stories that came out. Depends on how you want to believe. Butch Burroughs comes out years later and says that he sold Oswald popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
In his original testimony, he said no.
No.
Butch Burroughs did not say. You're saying that Butch Burroughs said that he sold Oswald popcorn when he came in?
No. What happened was in his Warren Commission testimony, they asked him, "Did you ever see Oswald come in?" And he said no. And he said no. And that's true. Right. However, if you actually sit down and talk with him, and he's still alive, if you actually sit down and talk with him and you ask him, "Did you see Oswald come in?" No. And then you ask him, "Did you ever see Oswald that day?" And he'll say yes. Yes. He said what happened was he was bending over stacking candy. He heard the doors open behind him, and then about 15 minutes later, Oswald came out of the theater and he sold him popcorn.
So this is 1:30, 1:30ish, 1:25, something more around there.
We don't know the exact time, but somewhere around there, yeah. So yeah.
So Oswald, it's one something. So Oswald, for not being a big eater, I mean, he's kind of hungry that day, right? I mean, cheese sandwich, apple, now a bag of popcorn.
Yeah, it's funny how food pretty much. I'm not sure if anyone has ever made this argument, but it's pretty kind of humorous that food exonerates Oswald. You know how he was seen in the lunchroom eating his lunch just before the shooting, and then he was seen at the time the Tippit was killed, buying popcorn, and he was seen 74 seconds after the shooting of Kennedy, buying a Coke. So it's kind of funny how food exonerates him.
So I guess maybe he went out and bought the popcorn after he had been there. So according to what I've read, and I don't know how true this is, that this is a theater that I've been in it, but they said that it was a theater seats 900 people or something, and there was maybe 25 or 30 in there that day. And he walks up to the odd spot, sitting and sits beside somebody against the wall. Jack Davis. Are you familiar with that story?
Yes.
I've tried to find his story on the Texas portable or something. So, what's the story? He sits beside Jack Davis, and what happens? I mean,
Jack Davis was 18 years old,
right?
in 1963, and he was in the movie theater, and the movie theater started. The movie started at 1:00, and during the opening credits, which was the first 20 minutes of the movie, he said that Oswald came in and sat right next to him, and he was thinking, "What the hell?" Because this is like almost 1,000 seats, and this guy's sitting right next to me. And then he gets up and he walks next to Oswald walks to someone else, sits next to someone else, and so on and so forth. And that's very common with you've seen the movies. That's what people do who are involved in plots and conspiracies. They usually meet people in movie theaters.
So you believe that that Oswald was there to make a contact?
Based on what I just described, yes. There's nothing else you could conclude, really.
Now, and we've all seen the movies or something. Wouldn't there be something to tip him off if there was a contact sitting in there? Guy with maybe a red shirt, blue pants, a white scarf, or anything.
We just know what was seen. He was obviously looking for someone, and then the cops, they burst in and they arrest him. So, it seems like whoever was going to meet him.
At one time,
say it again.
Didn't he sit beside? Wasn't one of the people he sit beside a pregnant woman?
Yep.
Okay, so the cops come in, and stage lights come off, and I believe they may have given him a false sense of security. They said, "Sir, stand up, show me some ID." Goes on. Now let's go back to the back, because I've had people argue with me this again. McDonald shows up, and supposedly Oswald says, "Well, it's all over now, or this is it," and strikes the officer. Draws his pistol, and the webbing of his hand kept it from firing. Now, some people say that didn't happen. What's your take on it? Did he strike the officer and try to fire him, or?
A lot of people say, "Oh my God, if he's innocent, why did he try to kill a cop, and why did he fight?" Well, us critics, we believe that Oswald was entangled in the conspiracy, and so therefore this could be true. This could happen, but that doesn't mean that he shot the president. He's involved in the plot, so therefore and they're about to arrest him, so of course he would fight the police, and of course he would act suspicious, like get his gun and all that stuff. So yes. So it makes sense that he would be acting suspiciously during all this.
Let's go back to the killer. Where's he at now?
He's gone.
Like, just vanished, dipped. He's caught a bus, and he's nowhere, just split. Okay, now the pistol that Oswald had on him, he had the same type of ammunition that was found at the scene.
Yeah.
The head of the lady, I can't think of her name. Head of the Illinois State Crime Board had him tied. A lot of the bullets were. Do I know?
Are you there?
Yeah, I thought
You kind of broke up a little bit.
Oh, Steve. I can't think of his name. Anyway, the weapon that Oswald had on him had the same type of ammunition that was found at the scene. I can't think of his name. Who was head of the Illinois Crime Board? He testified that it was to the exclusion of all others. 4 of the bullets, or 3 of the bullets, too mangled. One of the bullets he tied to the weapon that Oswald had. Correct? Correct? Correct, Matt? Matt, you're on Matt, you're on speaker. Matt.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, you had your thing on mute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't hear me or no?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you fine now. Did you hear me what I was saying?
What did you what
What I said the weapon that Oswald had on him had the same ammunition. It was at the Tippit scene. I can't think of the guy's name now. Who the
Nickel.
Illinois State? Huh?
Nickel.
Yeah, Nickel. Testified that it was that weapon was used to the exclusion of all others, and one of the bullets they were able to test back to his weapon. So Oswald's weapon, that's the murder weapon.
Okay, so first of all, you said that it's a big coincidence that the same ammunition was found at the crime scene. Well, actually, those two brands are the most common brands of ammunition. So no, it's not a big. Coincidence.
I didn't say it was a coincidence. I said that both of them was found on him. And let me tell you a little quick story right here. It's really kind of funny. One of my friends asked me, Matt, you got your thing turned muted again.
I know.
So one of my friends asked me one time. He said, "What's the best pistol to carry?" And I said, I said, I carry a 38 revolver. It's a lightweight 5-shot. I said, here. So I opened the chamber up, took the rounds out, handed it to him, and I looked down in my hand, and I was like, there was 2 Remington and 3 Winchester 38 specials. So, no, I don't think it's a coincidence that he had 2 different types of weapons. Regardless, one of the bullets matched his weapon.
Okay,
you agree with that?
Yes, of course. Okay, so first of all, as I said a second ago, those 2 types of ammunition are the 2 most common brands of ammunition. So no, it's not a coincidence that the same ammunition was found at the crime scene. I'm very familiar with that argument. Now, you said that this guy named Joseph Nickel, he claimed that in his opinion, one of the bullets from Tippit's body could be traced to Oswald's pistol, but every other expert who has 8 other experts, firearms experts, disagree with him.
Um. Okay.
They disagree with it. Yeah, the bullets could never be traced to Oswald's revolver. Okay, and you have
Well,
like
one thing.
eight X.
That's where like the 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 bullets are traced to the shells.
What? Say it again.
Bullets are going to be traced to the shells.
No, there's no scientific tests where you can trace bullets to shells. No.
The bullets will. The bullets. Okay. The bullets. All right. Let me go through this again. You're saying the bullets cannot be traced to the shells.
There's no scientific test where you can link a shell to a bullet. There is no test for that.
When you're doing ballistics, and I forgot about it. First of all, I want to tell you who these other guys that you said testified. They testified that these could not be that the bullet could not be traced to a shell, or cannot be traced to Tippit's body.
No, what I said was the bullets could not be linked to the pistol.
Okay. So the bullets could not be linked to the pistol.
Correct.
And who were, which, just curious, I mean, what were their qualifications?
Those are the firearms experts who testified before the Warren Commission and who testified before the House Select Committee on Assassinations. They all concluded that the bullets removed from Tippit's body could not be linked to Oswald's pistol.
Okay. So what you're telling me is there's nothing that can trace the shells back to Oswald's pistols.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay. All right. Maybe I misunderstood you. So is there anything that can trace it to it?
Okay, so the only thing that apparently links Oswald to the Tippit murder is the shells that are now in evidence match to the gun. But there are a lot, but there are a lot of problems with those shells, and we can go into that.
Okay. All right. I mean, if you got time, I mean, I would love to listen.
Sure, ask away.
What I mean, I'm trying to explain how you just explained that because I lost my thought. The question I had. Explain what I'm looking for. Explain how they can be traced to that. They can match it. You know, this one guy saying it's the exclusion of all others. These guys are saying it doesn't match. What is causing one expert to say it's matching and 8 to say it's not matching? Does that question make sense?
Yes, it does. Okay, so as I said, all of the firearms experts for the Warren Commission and the HSCA could not link the bullets to Oswald's pistol, but the Warren Commission had an independent guy, expert, as you said, who claimed, oh, yes, I can match it up, but the other experts do not agree with him. So it's kind of like a voila moment, oh, they can't match, and then they bring in this independent guy. It's like, oh yes, well, I can maybe match one of them, but in his one of them might have matched, but no.
Did all of these guys testify?
Yes. Yes,
and the
they
Warren,
and the HSCA.
And the Warren Commission chose to believe Nikolai. I can't even think of his name.
Nickel.
Okay, Nickel.
Essentially, yeah.
That is Hmm. So now, tell me about the House Select Committee on Assassinations. Did they conduct the same test?
Yes, they did. They conducted the same tests, and they agreed with the other experts, firearms experts, before them, that the bullets could not be linked to Oswald's pistol. Yeah, this is a basic fact that the bullets cannot be linked to Oswald's pistol.
Okay, so if Oswald was not the shooter and this other guy was, I mean, the conspirators had to go a pretty long way to make sure they both had the same 38, the same shells, and just get lucky enough
No,
to trace it.
no. Some people don't believe that the Tippit murder was even related to the Kennedy assassination. I tend to think that. I don't think it was related to the Kennedy assassination.
Do you believe that it was related to a jealous husband?
It's possible, but we have no way of knowing for sure.
I read something one time that Tippit was involved in drug running. Have you ever heard anything about that?
Now, that's an interesting story because during the testimony of Captain Fritz, Alan Dulles suddenly says, "Hey, I heard a rumor that Officer Tippit was involved in what you just said, drugs." And Captain Fritz said, "No, I've never heard of that." And Alan Dulles is like, "Oh, okay," and he just drops it. So that's a good question. Where did he get that from? Is there any truth to that? So we don't know. It's just something that we don't know.
Well, the reason I asked about that right there too is, and I'm not I hope nobody thinks I'm implicating Officer Tippit in anything, but if I'm not mistaken, Officer Tippit was keeping up two households
That's
off
true.
off a salary of like $454 a month, and that's you know that's pretty hard to do. I don't care how many jobs you're working. Uh,
That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Um, so, what would your opinion be of Tippit's involvement, or just did he just wrong place, wrong time?
You know what? I have to agree with Larry Harris and Greg Lowery. They are the two experts from Dallas researchers who studied this case the most, and they both reached the same conclusion that Tippit was not involved in the conspiracy. So I have to agree with them. I don't think that Tippit was involved in the plot or the conspiracy.
Do you think that that he could have been part of Joseph McBride's theory that he was supposed to drive somebody somewhere and they shot him?
No, I personally
Okay.
don't believe that.
Okay. I don't believe that either. Okay. So here we are further along. Now, Oswald's been arrested. He's taking in. We've talked about the bullets or the ballistics on the weapon. Don't know how I lost what I was thinking of about the shells a while ago. I got it confused with something else. Please forgive my ignorance. Please forgive my ignorance on that. Because I was thinking of bullets matched to a gun, and it's neither here nor there. So Oswald is originally arrested for the murder of Officer Tippit.
Correct.
So, surely the Dallas Police Department had already put two and two together, wouldn't you think?
What's your question? No, they did not know. Well, that's actually a good question because the Dallas police stated that they had no prior knowledge whatsoever of Oswald, and that his arrest was unrelated to the Kennedy assassination. However, as officers beat Oswald during his arrest, a witness overhears one of the officers shouting, "Kill the president, will you?" And as they're dragging him from the theater, one of the employees hears another officer say, "I think we got our man on both accounts." So that's very questionable, because officially they said, it was unrelated. They had no idea of Oswald, but
if you also recall, when they're bringing him in, he goes, "Well, naturally, I work in that building."
that's much later.
Well, yeah, but still, he still had not been charged with murdering the president.
When he said that, that was much later that night, after they allegedly put two and two together.
And that, but and I don't think that's why it would take so long. That would be my first suspicion. I mean, President Kennedy's been killed. We have a Dallas police officer been killed. I would be thinking. So, what's your opinion on Tippit then? Just unlucky guy. I mean, was some type of involvement? Wrong place, wrong time. I mean,
that's another problem. We don't really know a whole lot about what happened. I really wonder about why the man was pulled over. Why Tippit stopped this guy. That's a very big question mark. Why did Tippit stop this guy?
I mean, I think I could. Why? I mean, you've got a guy walking on the street, and there are some reports that he turned around. I don't know if it's true or not.
No.
And whatever I'm saying here, I'm not saying 100% fact. I hear stuff all the time, but I mean, I could see why he stopped the guy if he matched the height, build, question. It seemed to me that whatever was said in the windowsill, something was said wrong.
Let's put this into perspective. Okay. Here's a man, Tippit, who never had a promotion for so many years. Okay,
right,
and he sees the back of a man's head, and he connects him. According to the official story, he connects him with the description on the police radio. I mean, that's their version. Okay, that's according to the official story. Okay, now he's looking for a guy 165 to 175 pounds. Okay, that's a light heavyweight boxer. Okay, Oswald is slender, weighs 136 pounds. He's 10 years off in age. He's looking for a guy in his early 30s. Oswald is 24. And this man, Tippit, a man who they described in his Rorschach test as, quote, wholly devoid of imaginative facilities, suddenly decides the time has come to act. I mean, it just makes no sense. So, again, I really wonder why the man was stopped. I really wonder that, because that's a big question mark.
I would say that he would stop him to question him after something like that going. I mean, he's the young person walking on the street. That would be my thinking. Of course, I'm not a police officer. So I don't know.
Yeah, no one except the Warren Report believes that he stopped the man because he thought he was that he was the presidential assassin. No person believes that.
So tell me if these stories are true. Tippit is racing around the top 10's record store making phone calls.
Yeah, that's another story. Just before all this happened, he ran into the record store, tried to make a phone call, got no response, and then hopped back in his car, and he was killed minutes later. So that's another question mark. And when he was inside, he missed a radio call. So it must have been whatever it was, it must have been very important for him to make that phone call.
Now, why was Tippit pulled off his regular beat?
Yeah, that's another question. What's he doing out there? He's out of his district. What's he doing out there? Well, officially, the story is that all the officers are going towards Dealey Plaza, and that they left. They told Tippit to go into Oak Cliff, just in case something happens, like a robbery or something. Well, but yeah, he's out of his district, so we don't really know what he's doing. That's a good question.
So the man killer that Tippit stopped, where was he headed?
We don't know. We don't know. We know that the man who Tippit stopped was walking through the neighborhood, walking west in the neighborhood. He and which would actually be coming back towards Oswald's rooming house. So that doesn't make sense.
So, very good question I have for you. How was this person associated with the?
You cut off there. Would you say it again?
I'm sorry. How was this person connected or associated with the conspiracy?
I never said that. I never said that the person who shot Tippit was involved in any conspiracy.
Okay, fair enough. So do you think this could just been a random killing? I mean, we see those happen all the time.
We have no idea. We just don't know. We don't know why Tippit stopped this man. We don't know what was said. We don't know why he shot him. We just don't know.
He was wanted for something else and panicked because Tippit stopped him.
We have no idea.
Okay.
Best a guess as anybody's.
Okay, so Oswald I guess was arrested and for the brought in. I think we've covered most of the Tippit case tonight.
No. There's a lot
there's probably some stuff I forgot.
There's a lot of stuff we didn't cover.
Well, refresh my memory because there's something I could have. Oh yeah. There's something I want to go back to. The witnesses. What was there? 13 witnesses that seen Tippit and identified or the murder and identified Oswald?
No. There are about 21 witnesses total who saw the killer either at the scene, running away, and there were 5 people who on 10th Street who watched the murder go down.
Okay. Now that you did that, explain it to me, because I realized a few months ago, Bill said there was 13 and this, but then I remember listening to Justice McBride, and Justice McBride said there was a whole lot of other witnesses. Tell me about these other 8 witnesses. I want to know these other 8 witnesses, and what they seen and what they said.
It's actually more. Are you talking about the people who did not take Oswald? Yeah. Who did not identify Oswald?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, it's actually more than 8 witnesses. It's actually 12 witnesses. It's actually a dozen people.
Okay, hold on. You start, since we're in this, and let's finish it then. Start with the you said there's 21 witnesses or whatever. Start with the witnesses for me. Go through the witnesses and tell me what they said, and tell me who identified who, and tell me who didn't, and if you got time for that, or if you feel like it.
Oh, sure. Okay, well, first of all, there were 5 witnesses who watched it go down. Okay, we have Jim Burt. He told reporter Al Chapman and researcher Larry Harris that it was not Oswald.
Okay.
And then we have the guy with him, Bill Smith. He told the FBI that he couldn't identify Oswald. Okay. Then we have the closest witness, who was Donnie Benavides. He testified that he couldn't identify Oswald. Okay. Then we have William Scoggins, taxi driver. He picked the wrong photo in a photo lineup, and he could not ID Oswald as the killer when shown a photo by the FBI. Okay. And then finally, we have Helen Markham. And as I said, she testified that she didn't identify anybody in the lineup. So those are the 5 witnesses who watched it go down on 10th Street. Okay.
Okay.
And they could not identify Oswald, except
Okay.
for, as I said, Helen Markham. But if you look at her testimony, it's no, 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 yes, yes, and then she ended it with I wasn't sure, but okay. Okay, so those are the people who watched it go down, and then you have 12 people, and then you have 12 other people who refused to identify Oswald.
12.
Yes.
There was 12 people who refused to identify him.
Yes. As I said,
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, as I said, I mentioned, I'm stuttering. Hold on. We can cut this out, right? We can cut out my stuttering.
Yeah. I'll fix it.
Okay, so I've mentioned 2 of them already. Donnie Benavides. He could only say that Oswald resembled the guy. That's the best that they could get out of him. Smith, as I said, he told the FBI that he couldn't identify Oswald. Then we go to Warren Reynolds. He told the FBI, quote, he would hesitate to definitely identify Oswald as the individual. Then we go to L.J. Lewis. It also says, quote, he would hesitate to state whether the individual was identical with Oswald. Mrs. Clemens, this is from Mark Lane's book, Last Word, his last book on the Kennedy assassination. Mark Lane writes, quote, when shown pictures of Oswald, Mrs. Clemens said that he was not one of the 2 men that she had seen. Okay, we can talk about her later if you want. And we have Frank Wright. And then we have Frank Wright. He said, quote, I've seen what came out on the television and in the papers, but I know that's not what happened. Nothing in the world is going to change my opinion. I know what I saw. Meaning it wasn't Oswald. And then we have Mrs. Donald Higgins, who said the killer definitely was not the man they showed on television. And like I said, we have Jim Burt, who I mentioned earlier. And then we have Robert Brock, where it says, quote, he advised he could not positively identify same as being identical with the individual who had passed him. And we have another guy named Francis Kenneth, and he, according to his FBI interview, it says, quote, he advised he could not identify Oswald as being the individual he had observed leaving the shooting at the scene. And then we have the guy with him, Austin Elbert, and he also, I'm sorry. And then we have the other guy with him named, I'm stuttering again, man. We can cut this out, right? You know why?
I'll come back in and
okay. And then we have a guy named and then we have a guy with Kenneth. His name is Albert Austin, and it says, quote, he advised he could not identify Oswald as being the person who shot the Dallas police officer. And then we have an anonymous witness who wrote a letter to a publication and then we have an anonymous witness who said, quote, I saw 2 men, neither of them resembling the pictures I later saw of Lee Harvey Oswald. So those are the 12 people who could not identify Oswald, who refused to identify Oswald.
Now, I mean, I've never heard of these before until Brad was mentioning, numerous people. Because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, there was only 6 people who testified for the Warren Commission, right?
No. The people that are you talking about the Tippit witnesses? No, the Tippit witnesses that testified for the Warren Commission. Oh gosh, let's see. Helen Markham, Scoggins, Calloway, Ginyard, Davis, Benavides, Reynolds. I think that's it.
Well,
And
that'd be about six.
Smith. And Smith.
Well, that'd be about 6 or 8, wouldn't it?
Yeah, something like that. I wasn't keeping count, but yeah.
No. So, I heard you when your last statement was. You said somebody else saw 2 men shooting.
That's another problem. A couple people said that they saw 2 men, and it's it's a real shame that we can't get eyewitness accounts to match up.
Now, here's my problem with Clemens. I've read the David Von Pine side where the is cut and they keep getting her talk. So here's a woman who is a little older, heavy set. To me, my thinking is by the time she got outside, she had already seen people starting to gather around. So
No, she was not inside the house. She was on the front porch.
Well, that depends on who you ask now. I think Spartacus says she was on the front porch. Other sources that say she was in the house.
No, according to her interview with Shirley Martin in 1964, Mrs. Clemens stated matter-of-factly that she was sitting on the front porch.
Well, I'll be happy to go back and read that. But I know I've read that she was in the house, but I'm not going to split, hairs with her. But
she was on the front porch.
Okay. Anyway, I'm not going to split hairs with you. Now, how many people did you say was there in the vicinity? 5 or 6? And they didn't see a second person?
5 people saw it go down, yes.
Correct. But they did not see a second person.
As I said, that's one of the problems. It's very difficult that we can't get eyewitnesses' accounts to match up. Mrs. Clemens said that the other person was across the street. And if the other 5 people are looking at the scene, are looking across the street at Tippit and the other guy, they're not looking across the street looking for someone else. Does that make sense? So it could be. So I'm not. So yeah. So it could very well be. Witnesses are not. They don't know what they're going to see. They just see it. Just happens. So they're not looking for anyone else. They're just looking at the action, which is the squad car and the man who Tippit's talking to.
So do you believe Miss Clemens seen 2 people?
You know what? I have no reason to doubt her.
Huh?
I have no reason to doubt her. She. No, I don't. I don't have any reason to doubt her. She was yeah.
Now, in my opinion, and I'm gonna tell you whatever it's worth, $3 will buy you a Starbucks coffee.
What'd you say about Starbucks? What'd you say?
Huh? I said, in my opinion, and $3 will buy you a Starbucks coffee. But the way Mark Lane, it was a joke. I said, basically, my opinion is worthless. My opinion, $3 will buy you a Starbucks coffee. Mark Lane tried to make it out to sound like Jack Ruby was one of the shooters.
No.
You don't think so at all? Short, stocky man?
No. Mark Lane never suggested that Ruby was at the scene. No.
The way he described the shooter, you do not feel that he was describing Jack Ruby?
No. Mark Lane never, ever suggested that Ruby was at the scene.
I didn't say suggested. I said the way he portrayed it.
No.
No. With the pictures.
No.
And how did he get Miss Clemens to explain it? One was a short, stocky man?
No, she described the killer with the gun as short and heavy way before Mark Lane even got to her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So before he interviewed, way before he interviewed her, she said that the killer was short and heavy.
Okay. So the killer was short and heavy.
And that's also according to Mrs. Markham and Donnie Benavides.
Now I remember that. I'd have to go back and refresh my memory, but as I recall, they described Oswald as a ruddy complexion with curly hair.
No, that comes from Helen Markham's her description of the killer on that day. She told the FBI that the killer was, quote, 18, red complexion, black wavy hair.
I thought Domingo said, because Domingo said, not quite as ruddy as me.
Correct. Oh, yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay, so he described the killer this way: about 5'11", had a complexion a little bit darker than average, a little bit ruddier than mine. Now, he's Mexican-American, so he said ruddier than mine. So that's very important. And he had dark hair that was a little bit curly, and he looked like he needed a haircut for about 2 weeks with a hairline that sort of went square instead of tapered off in the back. He was the closest witness, so that's the very detailed description of the killer. That's from his testimony, volume 6, page 450 to 451. That is not Oswald. that's not Oswald.
Have you ever seen the picture of Oswald where he's sitting down, handcuffed, and his hair is all messed up? It looks wavy. You've never seen that picture? I'll send it to you.
I think I know what you're talking about, but no.
You don't think the hair looks messed up?
Well, his hair's messed up after he was beat up and arrested, so yeah, he's all disheveled. But no, what I just read to you was not Oswald, not at all. The way he described the Tippit killer.
Now, you do know that before I get into eyewitness testimony is some of the worst.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we agree on that. Now let's go to the lineups.
Mm-hmm.
There were 4 lineups conducted, right?
There was a lineup with Helen Markham, and then there was a lineup with Sam Ginyard and Ted Calloway, with McWaters, and there was also a lineup with the Davis sisters, and there was a lineup the next day with the 2 cab drivers, Scoggins and Whaley. Yes.
So
yes.
5?
Yes, there were lineups on Friday and Saturday.
So if they had 21 witnesses, they only called, what, 7, 8 to this?
Yeah.
9?
Shockingly, they did not call Donnie Benavides, who was the closest witness. It's shocking, but that's just how it is. That's how it is.
Did he not at first say that he could not identify him 100%?
That's the thing. That's what was claimed. But when Mark Lane and Emil D'Antonio caught up with him in 1966, when they were filming their movie Rush to Judgment, they asked him if he could identify the man who killed Tippit. And Benavides replied, he said, quote, of course I could. I was 10 or 15 feet away. Of course I could. I told that to the Dallas police, but they didn't bring me to the lineup. End quote. So that's amazing. This guy, Domingo Benavides, was 15 feet away. He's the closest witness, and they didn't call him to the lineup. So sad.
One of the lineups, and I just know how one of them was done, and you may know how all of them was conducted, but I remember the one that you see on YouTube, and Oswald is brought in with these 4 16-year-old teenagers, Latino teenagers.
No, that's the next day when he was put in a lineup with 2 teenagers and a Mexican. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. I didn't know which time it was, but I just remember him coming and he's
in the front.
Yeah.
He's in the front. Yeah. In the Friday lineup. Yeah.
I'm in a t-shirt with these men, and that way I'll be picked out. And is that right?
So he's bleeding and shouting out how he's innocent. So it's kind of, so you don't have to be too bright to know who the suspect is. So.
I mean, and my question is right there because, of all the people in the Dallas jail, that's who they got to go in the lineup. The lineups have been a problem I always had with that. That's the 3 or 4 guys they picked to go in the lineup was a couple of teenage kids.
That's the Saturday night lineup. That's in the Saturday lineup about the teenagers. In the Friday night lineups, Lee was thrown in with 3 men in dress attire.
Okay, I was told that he was told that there was detectives or whatever, and they had
2 police detectives and a jail clerk. One of them had a red vest, another one had a gray knit sweater, and one had a brown sport coat. And, so picture Oswald, torn t-shirt, bleeding, beat up, bruised, black-eyed, and he's thrown in with these 3 men in dress attire. So you don't have to be too bright to know who the guy is. And Captain Fritz therefore Captain Fritz lied when he testified before the Warren Commission when he said that they all, quote, fixed themselves where they would look like prisoners. Prisoners don't wear red vests or brown sports coats.
Okay. So the other ones, how were they conducted?
How the rest of the lineups were conducted, or what?
Clothes and
Oh well, as I said in the Friday lineups, Lee was thrown in. As I said, the Friday night lineups, the other guys in the lineup with Lee were in dress attire. And the Saturday night lineups, Lee was thrown in. Hold on. And in the Saturday lineup, Oswald was thrown in with, you ready for it? 2 teeny boppers and a Mexican.
I've seen that clip many times, yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, as I said, he was also shouting out how he was innocent and being railroaded. So and also the men in the lineups did not resemble Lee. And one of them they were heavier, older. Some of them had blonde hair. Some of them were ruddier. And also these men gave fictitious names and occupations in the lineups. And Oswald gave his real name and his real occupation, details which by that time were nationally known.
Yeah. I forgot that. So Oswald told he worked
so no wonder 5 witnesses picked him. How in the world could they not pick him? And the Warren Commission's position, the Warren Commission is satisfied that the lineups were conducted fairly. Wow.
And I'll tell you this right. I even argued on a post the other day. It was about the lineups, and
Vincent Bugliosi said that the Tippit lineups were not fair.
I said that this over here, and everybody knows that I side with the non-conspiracy side or non-long gunman. I said that the lineups were not conducted fair. Those were, it just, who else was they going to pick in that?
Yep.
So tell me about the shells that were autographed by J.D. Poe.
Okay, you want to go down the list with the shells?
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, unless you wanted to go to another topic.
Oh, sure. Okay, so let's go down the list right here. I've done this in the past. Donnie Benavides found the first 2 shells, and the FBI showed him the shells in evidence, and he could not identify them as the shells that he handled that day. Officer Poe, he marked the first 2 shells, and the FBI showed him the shells, and he could not identify them. He could not identify his markings, and he could not identify them as the. Hold on, let me read you this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let me read you this. Okay, so first of all, Donnie Benavides, as I said, found the first 2 shells. 7 months later, the FBI showed him the shells in evidence. And it says right here, volume 24, page 415, Mr. Benavides stated these all resemble the 2 cartridges which he found on November 22nd, but he stated he cannot identify any one of these as being the ones which he picked out and gave to an officer. End quote. That officer was J.M. Poe. Like with Benavides, 7 months later, the FBI showed Poe the shells in evidence, And let me just read you this right here. It says, volume 24, page 415. It says Poe recalled marking these cases before giving them to lab personnel, but he stated after a thorough examination of the 4 cartridges shown to him, he cannot locate his marks. Therefore, he cannot positively identify any of these cartridges as being the same ones he received from Benavides. So you asked about Poe. There you go.
Okay. Well, I can't remember the officer's name, but there were reports of an automatic being used.
Correct. Yes.
Now, do you believe there was an automatic used?
There was an automatic found at the scene, yes, and that's another puzzle because
You're talking about an automatic shell, because if a 38 is fixed right, it can hold automatic, 38 special.
Wait, say it again.
A 38 special.
What's your question?
Sorry, I may have missed. I may have misspoken on the question. There was reports of an automatic on the scene, or automatic used. Were there automatic shells found?
There was one automatic shell found at the scene, and that's again, that's a problem that has come up that people can't figure out. I mean, there are, first of all, there's not one, but there are 2 references on the police tapes to an automatic being used. Officer Summers reported over the radio. He said that, quote, he got on the radio and said, quote, that the killer was armed with a 38. Said he got on the radio and said that the killer was, quote, armed with a 32 dark finish automatic pistol.
32
dark finish automatic pistol. And then Sergeant Hill, and then 4 minutes later, Sergeant Hill radioed, quote, the shell at the scene indicates that the suspect is armed with an automatic 38 rather than a pistol. So, again, this is a problem because, many witnesses saw the killer tapping out the shells, which means it was a revolver. However, it seems inconceivable that Sergeant Hill could be wrong when he's holding in his hand a shell that says 38 auto on it. He not only saw it, but acted upon it by making that radio call.
Well, so remember, if a revolver, though, can be adjusted to hold automatic shells from a 38 as regular shells.
Oh, really?
Mine, yes. Because my 38 has had the barrel, and I forgot what exactly we got to do the barrel, but the barrel has to be adjusted, but it can be fixed where it can hold a automatic as well as a regular shell, because the revolver I got can hold both automatics and regulars.
See, that's very interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a conundrum because Sergeant Hill has in his hand a shell that, as I said, says 38 auto, right on it. He's looking at it, and there's not an automatic shell in evidence right now. But so it's kind of hard to explain that away. But Sergeant Hill told Stavis Ellis, who was an officer, he said, yeah, there was an automatic shell found at the scene, but it was unrelated. And that's according to an interview with Officer Ellis. Unrelated, yeah. How was a shell unrelated?
Maybe it was there before. I mean, this is Texas, Again, this is a big conundrum. It's hard to figure out where that shell came from.
Now, if I recall right, and you can tell me, there was, sorry, I may have the numbers off. There was 5 4 or 5 bullets that hit Tippit, but there were 6 shells that was found, or there was one more shell than what there was bullets, if I recall right.
See, that's another problem. The bullets and the shells don't match. Hold on a second.
Go ahead.
I worded this wrong in my. I worded this wrong in my debate with Bill Brown last year, so I want to get it right. Okay.
Okay.
And you can cut this part out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hold on. Okay. So, what's your question again?
There was like, say Tippit was hit 4 times, but there was 5 shells. There was an extra shell, as I recall, from the bullets and shells didn't match up, as I recall.
Exactly. Yes. 3 of the bullets were Remington and 1 was Winchester, but the shells found were 2 Remington and 2 Winchester. And some people said, well, maybe there was a 5th shot that missed. But again, this is another conundrum. There are just too many bullets and shells. 4 bullets hit Tippit. 1 bullet supposedly missed. 1 bullet was kicked out of the ambulance and onto the hospital parking lot by. Let me start over. Okay. I'm sorry. Hold on.
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So some people have suggested that, well, maybe there were 5 shots and 1 missed, but that would require a bullet going into a house across the street, and the person in that house ran out, and he never said anything about, you're not going to believe what happened. This bullet crashed through my house. He never said anything like that. So again, this is another question mark.
So, do you believe there was 2 shooters on scene?
If there was another shooter, then he would have to have been missed by the other witnesses, as you said. But no, it doesn't seem that there was 2 shooters. No, it doesn't seem like there were 2 shooters. There could have been.
That would be a hard time to.
I'm not saying there was another shooter, but there could have been. But we don't know for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that somebody would have seen something. I mean, I mean, I just have a hard time believing there was 2 there. Now, I wanted to ask you something again. We touched on earlier, and I wanted to come back to, and I forgot about Clemens. I want to touch on her. We already touched on that. So Oswald, excuse me, the killer. When Tippit stopped the killer was walking towards Tippit and then turned around and started walking the other direction.
No.
He was walking away from Tippit, or he was walking towards him.
No, the killer was walking towards Tippit, heading west the whole time. Yes. All the witnesses in the neighborhood who saw the man walking through the neighborhood before Tippit even pulled up said that he was walking west through the neighborhood. No one said anything about the killer turning around or anything. No, he's walking west.
Now, could this have, according to, I'm not going to keep calling him out, author, just keep calling this author out because they're listening, but he says that the Tippit murder was a staged event. Joseph McBride.
Okay.
It was a staged event. Why would this be staged?
I don't see any evidence that it was staged. No, I don't agree with that.
He also claimed of a second patrol car parked in the driveway. And
that's another problem. There's not a whole lot of evidence for that. It's really a mess, the evidence for that.
Even when the times I've talked to him, he talked about a a change of uniform was in one of the back of the cars. And I didn't know where he was going with that.
Oh, are you asking me about the jacket that's in the back seat of Tippit's car?
I think, and you may be right, but I could be wrong, but the way I thought I remembered it was hanging up like a change of uniform, and it was hanging up in the back, but it could have been a jacket laying in the back of the car.
Photos at the scene show that there was a jacket on a hanger hanging in the back seat of Tippit's car. Yeah, and Larry Harris, who was the world's leading authority on Tippit, I think he put an end to that in the 90s when he spoke at a conference, at the Ask conference, and he said it was that the officers had a long sleeve and a short sleeve uniform, and they had just changed over, and it was 68. It was 68. Yeah, I'm stuttering. It was 68 degree weather, and Tippit just to taking his jacket off and put it in the back. Probably something as simple as that.
And here's something I don't understand about his theory or where he come up with, because like as you just said, there's no evidence of the second shooter. Where does he come up with this idea that Dallas police show up to order Tippit to drive this guy to Red whatever it is, and Tippit balks and they shoot him? When the obvious answer to me was, why didn't you just drive him out there yourself?
Okay, so I think you're thinking of two different theories. One is the Joseph McBride theory in his book that there was another cop car at the scene, and then the other theory was the Roscoe White story about how Tippit was supposedly driving Oswald to Redbird, and then Oswald got out of the car, and then Roscoe White shot Tippit. So those are two different theories. So
hold on. What was that? Now, and you people were right, but I thought the last time I remember was that they had told him to drive him there. Tippit balked, and that's when they shot him. Now, I could have them mixed up with different theories.
I think you're mixing them up. Yeah.
And in my age, that happens a lot.
It's okay.
Don't worry, you'll be there soon. And see the joke?
Wait, what?
I said at my age, I said I get things mixed up. You said that's okay. I said don't worry, you'll be there soon.
Oh, okay.
So let's go through those theories.
Oh, yeah. I don't find those. I don't find those two theories credible. Again, they both have him involved, and again, I have to, like I said, I have to concur with Larry Harris and Greg Lowry, who studied Tippit the most, and they concluded that Tippit wasn't involved in all this. So
I looked through and he's talked about. I believe it was Harry Olsen, and he apologized to Marie and said, "I'm so sorry. I was supposed to be there that day."
Okay, so you're thinking of okay, I see what you're thinking of. No, not Harry Olsen. Supposedly, according to Tippit's father, Joseph McBride talked with Tippit's father, and Tippit's father said that Marie visited him, and she said that she was visited by another officer who told her that Tippit was hunting down that he and Tippit were hunting down Oswald. Okay. That's what you're thinking about, I believe. I believe that's what you're thinking about.
Yeah,
not Harry Olsen. Yeah, not Harry Olsen.
Yeah, I mean, all the stuff runs together now. But yeah, you're probably right on that. But they were both hunting him down, and he said, "I'm sorry, I was supposed to be there." And
supposedly this other officer got in an accident.
I thought he was in a car wreck, right?
Something like allegedly.
But there was no police report of the car wreck. Is that right?
There is a report. of a car wreck. Yes, there is a report of a car wreck. There is a report of a car wreck. Yeah.
So, was this just I'm sorry, I should have been there, or was this something more, sinister?
I have no way to know if that story is true. I mean, that is what Tippit's father told Joseph McBride, according to what he was told by the widow, Mrs. Tippit. So it's kind of hard to tell. We don't really know.
So let's now jump to Harry Olsen. I mean, how did he get pulled in this?
Harry Olsen, yeah, this is oh boy, yeah, that's
he was guarding the state Oak Cliff. I mean,
yeah, that's a very interesting story. It's something else. Okay, so yeah, do you want me to tell you the story or?
Of course, absolutely.
Sure. Okay.
Well, you got time. I'm here. I'm enjoying it.
Okay. Now this is quite the story. I don't think I could make something like this up. But anyway, even if I try. But anyway, okay. Harry Olsen resigned from the police department and left town shortly after the assassination.
I do recall that.
And they went looking. The FBI went looking for him because when they asked Jack, because in his testimony, when Jack Ruby was asked, "Where'd you get the idea to kill Oswald?" he said, "Oh, I got it from Harry Olsen."
Let me cut you off right there. Sorry, I remember a part in McBride's book where he said that Harry Olsen and Ruby and maybe Harry Olsen's girlfriend or another cop, that they were like just working Ruby into a frenzy, and he said that was the underworld telling them to go kill Oswald.
Yes.
Is that what? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I just said. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that was the same story. So, okay. Yeah. So now I'm trading like a Hellfire missile.
Yep.
So, Harry Olsen, I mean, he had ties to Ruby.
Yes.
And he was supposedly putting Ruby up to kill Oswald.
That's what Ruby testified to. Yeah, he said, yeah, that's what Ruby testified to.
I mean, where did Ruby? I mean, because when you look at Ruby's movements that day, I mean, 30 seconds one way or another, he wouldn't have been in position. I mean, so that
that's a whole other topic. So yeah, we'll getting away from Tippit right now.
We'll have a discussion on that another time. We'll have an interview on that. So Harry Olsen was trying to talk Ruby into killing Tippit. Why? What would Harry Olsen?
I don't know. That's what Ruby testified to. But so they went looking for him to ask about that, and when the Warren Commission went to interview Olsen, they asked him, well, why did Chief Curry tell you to resign? And he said, I can't remember. And then and so they said, okay, where were you at the time of the assassination? And he said he was guarding an estate. And so they asked him what was the name of the estate. He said, I can't remember. Okay, that's kind of amazing because everyone knows where they were that day. But anyway, so they asked him, well, how did you get the day off? Because every cop was downtown, supposed to guarding the president, and he said that and he said that another cop had asked him to take his duty that day, and so Spector said, okay, what was the name of that officer? And Olsen said, I can't remember. Okay. And so then they asked him, well, wait, hold on. Let me go back a little bit. I skipped a part.
I'm
sorry. Hold on.
No, don't worry about it. You're fine. You're doing great.
Yes, hold on a second.
Take
I
your
got
time,
it.
man.
I think I got it right. Hold on. Yeah, so he said he wasn't the regular guard, that it was another cop who had the duty, and he said, okay, and he couldn't remember his name. Okay. And he also said he couldn't, and Olsen also said he couldn't work that day because he had a broken leg. But, and so our inspector who's taking the testimony, he reminded him that Olsen, he had checked his hospital records, and he said he actually broke his leg on the 8th of December. So, okay,
8th of December.
8th of December. And yeah, so then the inspector turned to Kathy Kay and asked Kathy Kay, who was Harry Olsen's girlfriend, who was also a stripper of Ruby. He asked her if she could vouch for where Olsen was, and she said no, because she had gone shopping that day, and she had borrowed Harry's car because Harry had spent the night at her apartment, and so she had gone shopping. And the inspector said, "Oh, well then you must know where the estate was because you dropped him off." And she said, no, she hadn't. So he asked Harry Olsen, well, then how did you get to the estate? And he said, I walked. On your broken leg? How far did you walk on your broken leg? He said, well, just a couple of blocks. And her apartment was in Oak Cliff. And it's on 8th and Ewing, just a couple blocks away from where Tippit was murdered. So he's placed himself on foot in the neighborhood in Oak Cliff.
Huh.
Yeah, and by the way, his work records show he worked on Thursday, the day before, and he worked Monday. So the only day that he took the only day he took off was the day of the assassination. I mean, and
Does
then
he have an alibi of anywhere he was at that day?
No, he doesn't have it. No,
So what do you think he was doing?
I don't know, but I don't know. That's the other question mark in all this. Were you aware of this?
I was aware of bits of Harry Olsen. I knew that Harry Olsen was guarding the state. I knew that he had a broken knee. I did not realize it was on December 8th. I know Oak Cliff is not a place where you have estates that need to be guarded.
No, absolutely not. And then he changed his story, and he said it wasn't an estate. It was just,
Yeah. I was not aware of his girlfriend dropping him or supposedly dropping him off, anything like that. But I knew his story. Maybe there's nothing to it. Maybe there was something. It just seemed a little odd to me about Harry Olsen's.
Again, that's just something else that occurred. Just a couple blocks away, and it's just something that's there, and we can't really figure out what to do with it.
There's. It seems like I come away with every time I get into Tippit stuff and I read it and I see, ironclad evidence, I come away with, more questions about this right here and this right here. Again, one of the things I want to say, I always say Oswald, but I'll say the killer. I've often wondered where they were walking, just walking down the streets of Dallas that day.
It's impossible to know. It's impossible to know. Yeah.
There was something else about Tippit I remember too. Tippit supposedly worked at a skating rink or something, and was supposedly not very popular with a lot of the kids there.
Something like that. Yeah. He had a part-time job as a security guard at Austin's barbecue.
Now, is that where his girlfriend worked?
Yes, and I think what you're thinking of is an obscure little detail. I believe that there were a couple of counts where he got mad at a couple of teenagers or something like that. But yeah, I can tell that you've done your homework, because that's like an obscure little detail.
Well, I mean, yeah, I wish my mind was what it was 15 years ago, because I
No,
can
no, you're
read
fine.
something
Oh
10
no, you're
minutes
fine.
later I forget, and
You're
I'll
fine.
have to have people correct me. But I can remember that they said that the kids there were not fond of Tippit because Tippit tended to get a little rough with them over nothing. Um, I don't know if that had something to do with this PTSD coming back from World War II.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's an obscure little detail. I don't. Yeah, that's just something that's there.
I mean, there's so many things that I'm not accusing him or putting him in anything. But the things about keeping two households up of $454 a month, that that in itself is impossible. I have questions about getting pulled off his cliff that day. I understand there's going to daily plays, but my thinking is, and you can tell me, of course, I'm not a police officer, but shots ring out, president's dead. My thinking would be to set up a perimeter blocks around Dealey Plaza instead of in the plaza itself, and make sure nobody gets out instead of rushing everybody into the plaza. Yeah, that's just my thinking. That's just the military part coming into me. You set up a perimeter, you have checkpoints, nobody gets out, and then you start working your way inward and clearing buildings until you find, looking for whoever you're looking for. But back to the kids' destination there. That's why I was wondering why he, and maybe there was somebody else, but if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Tippit the only one that was pulled off his beat?
The dispatcher told him and another officer to stay in Oak Cliff while everyone else, all the other officers, went to the plaza. But that's another thing. That officer, I forgot his name, also went to the plaza. So that's another question. Not a question, but yeah.
And
so that's something else.
And didn't there's some did Tippit pull over a vehicle, start searching their car?
Yeah, that's another thing. There was a guy named James Andrews, who said that he was pulled over by Tippit, and Tippit searched his car and then left. And unfortunately, that's another thing that no one can really quite figure out. We don't know what that was about.
I mean, and I think he was looking in the trunk too. I mean, obviously he had to be looking for something.
Yeah.
What that was. I mean, so did Tippit know Oswald?
That's another thing. There are. Oh wait, did Tippit know Oswald?
Yeah.
No. Most likely not. No.
What about the incident about the eggs?
The eggs?
Yeah, supposedly a few days before the assassination, Oswald was in a restaurant complaining about it, the way his eggs was cooked, and Tippit shot him.
Yeah. Okay, so a few days. So a few days. I'm stuttering again.
Don't worry, you're fine. I can't even tell you're stuttering.
Yeah, I have a stutter I've had my whole life, and we can cut this out, okay?
Yeah, I mean, we've been in for hours, but I'll do the best I can to go ahead and all of it out. But you would hear me stutter. Give me start talking fast right now. You won't understand a word I say. I mean, I'm horrible at it.
And that's another story that's really. Yeah, that's another story that's really interesting. On November 20th, so 2 days before the assassination, Oswald was seen at the Dobbs House restaurant, and he was complaining about his eggs because they weren't cooked right. And he was, yelling at the waitress, saying, being mean to her. And JD Tippit was also in the restaurant as well. So that's another question. So that's another interesting little story.
Yeah, I mean, it could be nothing. I don't know really what to make heads nor tails of that.
Yeah, supposedly Oswald was at work at that time, but I mean, hey, he was an agent, so there, maybe he could come and go from his work as he pleased. Who knows? But we just know what was reported.
Agent. So we're gonna have to say that for our JFK interview.
Sure.
Whether he's an agent or not.
Sure.
So for
but yeah, that's just another story that's there, and it's interesting.
Well, I mean, trying to think of some other stuff maybe I've missed that you want to add.
Anything else that you can think of to ask?
Not that I can think of right now. I've really enjoyed this. Like I said, there's nothing, and I'm sure I can probably come up with something, and we can do follow up or something one day on some other stuff. I would like to thank you. You're the first CT who has been brave enough to come on the show. I guess everybody thought I was going to try to.
Now, I'm not a CT means conspiracy theorist. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. To me, a conspiracy theorist is a flat earther, or a Boston bombing didn't happen, Sandy Hook didn't happen, no planes hit the tower, moon landing hoax. To me, that's what a conspiracy theorist is. But to me, I consider myself a student, a researcher, a guy who's into the case. The label is irrelevant. The label is irrelevant.
Why are you saying that? I mean, because somebody called me a researcher the other day, and I said, no. I said, I'm not a researcher.
The label is irrelevant. I'll say,
but I'm not a researcher. There's guys who know. I'm a student. Like I'd be studying a history class. I'm not.
So the label is irrelevant. The label is irrelevant. Whether you think I'm a conspiracy theorist, I'm not. Whether you think I'm a lone nutter, I'm not. Whether you think I'm a secret lone nutter, I'm not. Whether you think I'm a dumbass, whatever. Listen, the label is irrelevant. I will state what my position is, and we can either address that or not.
And when we cut camera, there's some things I want to tell you. But yeah, I mean, like I said, whatever label you want to use, let's say doubter of the, you're the only one who's been brave enough to come on and speak with me, and I guess everybody thought I was going to, attack them, and I said, no, I'm not going to attack you. Then
no, it's
everybody
fair question.
And I said, yeah, I'm going to ask questions, but I'm not going to grill you. Because I mean that's part of an interview. I mean, I'm here to ask you questions, and but a lot of people I guess thought I was going to grill them or try. I was like, no, I'm not like that. I'm going to, So you was the first person to do this. So you've got to, you can go back and tell all the other ones you did it. But I admire you that for for having enough guts, or I don't say guts, but to not be scared enough to come on there and state your position and lay it out articulately. I thought you did a very good job, better than I expected you to do, and I don't mean that insulting, but I thought you did a very good job going over the case tonight. You need a lot of facts, names, stuff that I forgot. So, I just want to thank you for that, and I want to have you back on real soon.
I'm stuttering. Hold on a second. Let me finish. I can't believe I'm stuttering on one word. Hey, thanks, Chris.
Hey, thanks a lot, Matt. And I'll talk to you real soon. And hey, man, I loved it.